Oh, I was really believing the story of what success looked like, which was that success was all about how hard can you work and how much can you give to work and to other people. And it felt like I was completely ignoring myself. And it was a moment where I thought, if I just continue on this path, it feels like it's going to break me. And then it was having also a whisper within me saying, this isn't the right path for you. And so it was trusting the whisper. It was trusting the little whisper that it was like, if I were to listen to that, and I could feel, even this was before I became a coach, even back then I could feel if I were to listen to that whisper, and I felt this like surge of what felt like freedom.
Welcome to On Mute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. My guest today is Sarah Papp. She's a master certified coach who helps people move beyond burnout, fear, and self-doubt so they can reconnect with who they truly are and create a life that feels alive, aligned, and deeply their own. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hi, Priya. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation. Just as we were talking before we hit record, one of the things we were talking about is identity. And that's all, for my listeners, especially at midlife, as we're navigating perimenopause, without even knowing that it's about all the pauses. I call them the pauses. There's this shift that's happening within us, that there's this, we don't know who we are anymore. So, and this is some of the work that you do in your amazing business. So we're going to dive deep into that topic today. So some of what you do, not some, but what you do is identity and leadership coaching. And I would like to dive into talking about identity first. So share a little bit more about what identity is, like how it drives everything.
Yeah. So particularly for people in midlife, I think that we can have thoughts of identity and who we are, but that it often comes in life changing so much that we find ourselves feeling like we don't really know who we are anymore. And so then where that can often lead people is trying to change their behavior, trying to change their circumstances, working really hard, trying to figure things out, and not always asking who we want to be in this chapter of our lives. So that's the heart of the identity coaching that I do.
So do you find that people don't even realize that they have a choice of who they can be? It's like it's been predefined for them, just whether it's from childhood or society or culture or just within your own home?
Yeah, it's something that we don't realize that we are constantly doing. We're constantly defining who we think we are, even if it's really just by default, because we default to what's familiar, including the familiar story that we have about ourselves. But then we're in this new chapter of life where so much is changing. It's like kids can be changing, parents are changing, work is changing, our bodies are changing. It's all changing.
Yeah.
And then we can feel like we're still saying the same thing that we've been saying about ourselves, but something feels deeply off. And if it's not investigated, then we can just feel like we are in a loop where what we are doing doesn't feel like it's working and we don't really know who we are in our lives anymore.
And when you stay in that loop, what have you found are the consequences?
So let's talk about the loop just a little bit more for a second. So the way that I break it down, it's pretty simple. We're going to start by looking just at circumstances. So we all live circumstances or facts in our lives. It's the things that happen to us. Then we have the thoughts about that. Then we have feelings. So our emotions and our physical sensations from our thoughts. Then we act out of that. So we have behavior. And then we experience results from that. But running underneath all of this is who we believe ourselves to be. in those circumstances or in our lives. And what happens is that this goes uninvestigated. So if we take just a very simple example, that we can have somebody who will say, well, I just go to the gym. That's just who I am. It's what I do. And you don't even realize that all of that was playing through of the circumstance, the thought, the feeling, the behavior, the result, and who I think I am. But then what happens is circumstances change. And then we're not realizing this identity is running through it. But if we actually look at who we want to be, how we want to live, that then we can think about the circumstances differently. Then we feel differently. Then we behave differently. Then we experience different results. And that's when somebody can feel like, I feel like somebody else. But what I often hear, Priya, is actually, I feel more like me. I feel more like myself. It's like I've really come home to myself, because that pattern that was running that we didn't know about, that loop, it was something that was just familiar and conditioned. And so what I often say is we're taking away the familiar that never really felt like you, so that what emerges in the real identity is what feels like coming home.
That seems, as you said that, it was just like this, that feels really good. And liberating if you can come back to who you truly are.
And isn't that what we want in this chapter of our lives? To be like, I know who I am. And when I am aligned with myself, it feels like home. It feels like me. It feels more like me than I ever have for my whole life. When I've been in this pattern, usually because it was just trying to get ahead or survive life or be successful in someone else's definition.
Have you found it to be, or how do you navigate the disruption that it can cause in your life? Because it can be quite traumatic when all of these things are shaken up. So when if I just even use myself as an example, I define myself as an Indian woman, a speech therapist, and I was supposed to be married and children and all of these things, and those things weren't happening. And then once the career started not aligning with me anymore, it's like, oh my gosh, all these things that I had defined myself, that I am this, I am that, started to fall away. And it felt like, I did say to a friend, it felt like death.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you use the word supposed to be. And I think that is a place where a lot of people find a lot of pain in midlife, is because we had expectations of where we would be or what this life would look like. The story that sometimes it was even the one that we thought we were supposed to have. And then here we are, and we oftentimes will look around and go, I didn't think it was going to look like this, or I didn't think it was going to feel like this. This isn't what I expected. And that can be a really painful place to be. But so what we do at that place is really start with looking at where you are. And I often will ask the question, who do you want to be? Now, I'm not talking about you being someone other than you, but what I'm pointing to are the things that you know. So I will have people often answer, I know that I want to feel confident. I know that I want to be love. I know that I want to feel at home in my own skin. These types of answers. Okay, now we know where you are going. And then I'll ask, how do you want to live? And I usually get an answer like, I want to live in a way that feels like greater ease, or I want to live with adventure, or I want to live in a way where I'm really making decisions that work for me, not for other people. Okay, now we're crystallizing that even more. And then we can get into more specifics of that. But we're noticing the difference between the expectations that can feel painful, but that you can look at where you want to go from here based on those deep questions of who you want to be and how you want to live. And that can apply to any area of your life or your career or your business, because it's clarity with you. And the starting point is now. And this gives you a direction of where you want to go and then aligning with that now.
And so once in your experience and with your clients, once that shifts internally, once they have that deep connection with who do they want to be and where do they want to go?
Who do you want to be? How do you want to live?
How do you want to live? Sorry.
Yeah.
Does the external shift? Have you found that
this is such a funny question, because I would say that most of the time people say it did, but I can sometimes go, it's relative, because sometimes the circumstances can feel so different because of the way that we are meeting them that we almost don't even know how much the circumstances changed, or did I change? I will say that I often find that the way that people are in any given circumstance is so different that it makes the whole circumstance feel different. So if you don't mind, can I tell you just a little story?
Yeah, please do.
So this is just a tiny story. It came to mind because it was this morning, but it's not uncommon for me to have a long to-do list and kids to get to camp and all of these things happening all before 9 a.m. And so today I'm driving my daughter to camp. She's almost 10 years old, and I can have a to-do list in my head, but I'm driving and we have the music on and the sun is shining and blue sky. And I do have a moment where I think about this chapter of life and everything that is changing so quickly, how quickly she is growing older and her sister is growing older, and how my parents have been quickly declining, and how life just in general feels like it's moving fast and changing fast. Now, in that moment, there's been many times, admittedly, where I am in a mode of driving and getting things done. But today I glanced in the mirror, the rearview mirror, and I saw my daughter looking out the window, and she just had this look of pure content on her face. And I had the question drop in my head: who do I want to be in this moment? And I just thought, just right here with her, in her almost 10-year-old self moment that I know will pass in an instant. And how do I want to live? I want to be very present in knowing how quickly this is all going to change. And so I just reached back my hand, as I often do, and she leaned forward and squeezed my hand. And I was like, I love you, pumpkin. She's like, I love you too, mama. And it was like that moment of hearing her tiny little voice, I love you too, mama, was like, yeah, this is where these questions can take us deeply into the moment of who we want to be and how we want to live. So we're not just living in autopilot or trying to just get to the next thing, but really tuning into ourselves. So it's a tiny little example.
Yeah.
But when we repeat it in any space, whether it's the car with your kid or whether it's a difficult situation and a meeting at work, these questions can be these guideposts for us to come back to ourselves.
What a beautiful experience that you just shared. As you're sharing that, I was totally resonating with what you said, because I have those moments. Especially I have it with my dog, looking in the rear view mirror and seeing her cute face, and I reach back and she licks me, and it's just kind of that same moment. And then also how seeing what is shifting with my parents, and very quickly, it's all of a sudden time stops. The relationship with time changes. So then it's like, I did that this weekend with my parents, and they just looked at both of them. They both smiling, and we were both all three of us were just enjoying being there. And it's like, this is it. All of these things that I thought I was working towards in my life, none of it matters. This is what matters.
Yep. And this is where it can point you to that, because the circumstances are going to always be changing. And so that can be making our thoughts just be going a lot, very busy. But when we can find that, who do I want to be, that it can shift how we're thinking. And then it can have that ripple effect that you just described, where it's like, this is it. This is it. This is what it's about.
Well, I'm looking at your website and I just love this. This stood out to me that you said, I work with people from all walks of life, from entrepreneurs and leaders to athletes, artists and healers, but they all have one thing in common. They want to find their way to live, do epic shit, and feel connected to their soul and purpose along the way. And I think that that resonates with people who listen to this podcast, is that they've finally reached a point and they want to find their way to live. And they want to do something epic, or more than one thing that's epic.
I am obsessed with human potential and doing epic shit, how you define epic shit for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like in midlife, it's the time to say, don't do epic shit by trying to prove anything to anybody else, or to try and strive after worthiness.
Yeah.
Or to, as a way of proving that you're good enough. Like, now is the time for us to be doing epic shit, because we know from the core of our being that we're always worthy. And knowing who we really are and having that be the driver of what we are doing.
So as we're connecting with this version of ourselves that has always existed, probably peeling away the onion layers to get back to that version. It's what others have, or even myself, will refer to like returning to our soul, that our soul, that person, that divine being within us. So in this process, how does surrender and trust and control play into it? Because I can also speak from my own experience. I wanted to control everything.
Yeah.
And
We're
in this
club.
in this identity shifting, I had to let go of so much control, because I was saying, all right, I want to be this, but I want to do it this way. I was trying to set the parameters.
Yeah.
So speak a little bit in your experience about the surrender and trust and versus the control, and how that plays into this whole thing process.
Yeah. I think that when we use our bodies for feedback and really tuning into how it feels when we try to control something, that we will often find that our body is communicating to us tightness, maybe not breathing very deeply, and a lot of the feelings that we can trace back to fear. But then if we really listen into what we can trust, or even if you can't trust it, like if you could maybe trust it.
Yeah.
Maybe lean into trusting it, maybe leaning into letting go, and listen deeply to the body. What people describe is expansion. It's openness. It's a deep breath. It feels like relaxation. And if we trace that back, what people often describe is that it feels like empowerment. And so where the mind can often, it's the mind and the nervous system can often go to control because it's what feels safer. But that then if we can really tune into the wisdom of the body and do this in repetition of, if I were to trust this, how does it feel? Okay, do it. How does it feel? And this is something where it's repetition of listening to yourself, trusting yourself, listening to the body, trusting it, and then following through with action and repetition. That's where we make that shift from control, where it's like, I'm trying to control because I'm afraid, to can I trust and let go? And notice that by doing it, you actually feel better over time.
That's a powerful process. And
Yeah.
I love how you're bringing this connection to the body into the picture, because I think so many of us walk through life disconnected. If I think about it, myself, my friends, the women that I work with, there's such a disconnection.
We love to live from the neck up.
Yeah.
But yet the body is so wise, and really we have so many mechanisms that can show that the body is a truth teller. And so you can hook anybody up to a polygraph, right? And it's giving feedback when you're telling a lie. So similarly, we can notice that if we are saying something about ourselves, that the body that doesn't feel good, the body will give feedback. And if we say something that feels really empowering, you're getting feedback. So it's not something that we were taught to do. Certainly not me in my childhood. Most of us were not taught to listen to our bodies so much. But if we can really listen to the messages that we are getting from our bodies, which if we were to just really, really simplify it is, does this feel more like constriction or does this feel more like openness? Follow openness.
Follow openness.
Yeah.
It's such a much simpler pathway.
Very simple.
Yeah.
It can be like, if this makes you feel like you can't breathe, don't do it.
Where were you for 30 years in my life to remind me of that? Because pretty much everything that I did was from a place of I couldn't breathe. So.
If you think of something and you suddenly take a huge deep breath,
Yeah.
please listen to that. Listen to it because the body is wise. The body is wise and it is giving you information, and it's information for us to pay close attention to.
What a great reminder. On your website, you describe a moment when you realized that stress was going to kill you, even though from the outside life looked successful. What was happening beneath the surface for you that no one else could see?
Oh, I was really believing the story of what success looked like, which was that success was all about how hard can you work and how much can you give to work and to other people. And it felt like I was completely ignoring myself. And it was a moment where I thought, if I just continue on this path, it feels like it's going to break me. And then it was having also a whisper within me saying, this isn't the right path for you. And so it was trusting the whisper, is trusting the little whisper that it was like, if I were to listen to that, and I could feel, even this was before I became a coach, even back then I could feel if I were to listen to that whisper, and I felt this like surge of what felt like freedom. So undeniable. That was like, how can I not pay attention to this surge within me that feels like freedom?
Yeah. Freedom just sounds like that openness that you are when you say the
But
word freedom.
it's open. It's the deep breath. It's the pull. It's like something that is tugging on you. But, and I again, back to where we are in midlife is that I think that so many of us feel like we're in a place where we're in this routine of doing and either chasing the next level of success or trying to maintain the success that we have. And that's where I was at. It was just, how much more can I work and give? But this is a good time to really investigate within of, what do you deeply want? What do you deeply want in this chapter of your life?
Absolutely.
What do you deeply want in your work, in your relationships, and for fun with your friends, all of this, all these things? What do you really want?
I love that. Yeah. I call it the second act. It's like, okay, we've got the first act done. Let's close the curtains. Now we're doing the second act. Yeah. And we get to do it on our terms. We got to do it and in your experience, even with your clients, for yourself, the things that we placed importance upon
Mm-hmm.
throughout our life, all of a sudden, it's not so important anymore. So like, of course we need money to live, but I had such a focus on it for the longest time. And now it's fallen away and things are fine. But my focus, the importance is spending time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Not around career. It's not around building a name. It's around my family.
And I think that that's the gift of this time
Yeah.
that we have, is that we can, in the cycles that we go through in life, there's a birth of something, or we are born. And then there's this like growing, growing, growing. Then we stabilize. Then we decline. Then we die. And I feel like in this place that we're kind of in this more often stabilized, maybe teetering on some decline of some things. But what does that give us? Is that it gives us the vantage point to really be asking the questions of, what do we want in this chapter? Because it's such a different chapter than the ones earlier, knowing what's ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because, again, you're giving permission and permission for seasons. So maybe that this chapter is not going to last. It's going to last a few months. Maybe the next chapter is going to last a few years, and we get to move with that and flow with it rather than resist it. And it seems more exciting than rather than fearing something. When you think, oh wow, look what exciting thing is going to come into my life.
Absolutely. It's how is this time of our lives a gift?
Yeah.
How is this the best time of our lives? Because it's easy for us to talk about how hard midlife can be. And believe me, I could fill a podcast challenging about midlife, but yet we are also at a different vantage point. It's like, so then what is the gift of it that we have right now?
All right. Yes, let's talk about your business and who you work with. We mentioned in the beginning that you work with everyone. So share a little bit more about how you work with people and what capacity. Is there an application? And so that listeners can reach out to you.
Yeah, I work with people in a number of different capacities, but primarily I do one-on-one coaching. So I work with women and men, those who are interested in really having the exploration of coaching. I say that I approach this with coaching, psychology, and spirituality all come in an intersection of my work. And in one-on-one coaching, I work with people who are feeling oftentimes lost, burnt out, and overwhelmed in their lives or in their careers, and are looking to have a deeper sense of who they are and where they want to go from here, and to do those epic things that we had talked about. I also do group programs. So I have Alive and Aligned is my group program, where it is a 6-month program going through a whole arc of starting off with fear and what often gets in the way, leading us through these questions of who do you want to be and how do you want to live, and then also leading into becoming your future self. I have, and then my last thing I will say is, for many, it's hard to do a live program because of different schedules and time zones and all of this. So I have a version called a Return to Self. That is a self-study online program where then you can essentially work with me in your living room at your own pace, at your own time. So that is another way that people can work with me.
Amazing. We'll make sure to put and it's sarahpappcoaching.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. This has been an amazing conversation because I love the conversations where as I'm having them, I'm reflecting myself and thinking, all right, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be? What's my next goal? What is my next thing that I'm with this focus in my life as I'm shifting as well. So thank you for the conversation. It's been really powerful. And then just to hear just even a glimpse of what you do is amazing.
Yeah. It's just been wonderful to have this conversation with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So in closing, somebody's listening to this, they know that something needs to change. Their body is clearly giving them that nudge. Hey, something's up. I got to shift something, but they have no clue what needs to change. They have no clue where to start. What's one thing that they could do to begin the process?
Yeah. The one thing that I will start by saying is that I want them to know that this is not really about becoming anything, but this is more so about removing. So please know that within you, you do have the answers. You do know who you are deep down, even if it feels like it's covered up with a whole lot of stuff. And you do know what you want. So start with that knowing, and then be very curious. If you were not afraid of what other people would think of you, if you were not afraid of what would happen, what do you deeply want? And I know that when I ask that of people, a lot of times it's a hard, long silence, and that's okay. But be curious about yourself and what comes to the surface. And if it feels like a deep breath, if it feels like openness and freedom, even if there's this background of fear behind it, listen to it.
What great, I don't even want to call it advice, but thank you for sharing that. That's a nugget of gold that I think anybody could put into place right now. So thank you again, Sarah, for being a guest. I can't wait for this episode to come out. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Priya. It was so great to be with you.
And this show was brought to you by Project Icon.